I was an undergrad at University of Arkansas in like 1971 when Ralph came up there as a grad student, which will show you, okay, that I'm not the oldest person in the room. And actually Ralph's probably one of the reasons. There were a bunch of people who came to grad school up there from New Orleans, and he's one of the main reasons I ended up moving to New Orleans and setting up shop here 45 years ago. I don't know. But anyway, so the book that he's going to read newer today, he's not going to read from the Lavender Ink book, which is called Ever. So Ralph, take it away.
Oh. Okay. Well, these are, so yeah, stop me at 10. I'm going to read 3 new poems. If I still have some time left, I'm going to read the 4th one. I'm still revising. But these are from a new manuscript that I finished with, but don't know what to do with. The first 2 are, I don't know really how, I've never tried to describe them before, but there's a kind of conflation between me and Robert De Niro, has to do with me, and Ulysses Grant. That's all I can say. So the first one's called Coming to Be Robert De Niro. It has an epigram, always roaming with a hungry heart. That's from Ulysses. From Tennessee. I am Robert De Niro. I must rub my hands over my face and say, I am Robert De Niro. I have been inland for so long, a slice has opened in the stream, and I think of myself mulching Robert De Niro in flip-flops, mulching the baby tomato plants in full sun. I am the actor Robert De Niro, and come to tell you, nobody gets hurt for reals where I grew up in New Orleans, eating fish on Friday, roast on Sunday. Growing up meat was easy. Even the star stuff was skinned, born broken on waves in the long ago. Watch me, Robert De Niro. Watch me, batting balls out of parks, left to die in the woods, a bare flicker of memory to her. Walking to meet myself on the horizon, too sad to sit still at sundown. What was a man to do, much less a boy? Violent movie with a heart, that's what we want. I am your father's son, Robert, who has come undone, De Niro. Something sweet, something salty. I will survive being Robert De Niro, not being always hungry, horses in the morning, the world I missed. And this one is sort of, he does look a little bit like my father. So on C-SPAN one day I heard that, I didn't know this before, that Ulysses S. Grant during the war, during his battles, wore a private uniform. I was impressed. So it's called Grant in his private uniform. He and I shared some experiences. I say sometimes these days I have the memory of a gnat, but what if a gnat remembers everything? Every crashing breaks of air, each molecule of sunlight in its wing. For me, then, it really is quite different. The merging of the was and the was not, behind barriers of tall reluctance, on top, new growth, barrels of monkeys, a brush, the crease and everything. Gnats saw me relax in the sun, cigar lit, notebook cuddled, a line dividing me over and out for the count, the account itself or it, mad spillage like the first sea, commas everywhere like gnats, those sly engagements with the moon. The future is the surest way to die, but that comes so much later after all. Drinks prolong the night, you lay your head on the bar for that 1 minute, you wake up shouting, the bubbling night abounds, the beauty of bodies too, the miracles of sweat, the sweet perfection before passing out. So that's it. The mind goes to a bar and gets lost. And so you might say to the ghost in your brain, I want to touch you. I have to touch you. In this bed, in this soundless scape, my part, any part, on any part of you. This is called sleep. It's a little bit different. Sleep is not the gorilla she pretends to be. Sleep has remade your bed to adhere to cosmic forces. Sleep too soon? Sleep was looking to take out my whole family, rounding a corner, flipping a 50-cent piece, Kennedy at, barely nodding at the many ghosts I bed and bedded. Sleep pisses you off to see the look on your face. Sleep has no confederates. A well-brought-up wild animal cries more often. While sleep is content to be that blank slate neighborhood bullies break with fall littering, sleep gives nothing away. Not even the liquids of morning or evening or morning. Sleep has retained all rights, owns the casino, is quietly buying up the wilderness. But you've been down that road before, lost, several promises sticking out of pockets you never remembered empty. Ah, September. Take a seat. Sleep will be right with you. Sleep has a role to play, an instrument, a game. All the marbles that some philosophers spit out. My book closed tighter than a virgin's sphincter and buried up to its coda in debris. Sleep, that bastard, that homewrecker, that emotional illiterate, that you name it of which we shall not speak except to say, sleep, get in line and keep your hands where the cameras can see them. 2, I return to sleep, not the practice but the subject. I enter my name on the slip slipped in front of me. Sleep will be right with you, as her sentence is. As her sentence is almost up. She was framed, see, by a bunch of wise guys drinking gin and tugging at their ties. Oh, sleep, you tramp, you deserved better. Sleep, I could not hold your hand this time. All the noises had the same effect. We presume on each other's bodies until there is no tomorrow.
Okay, I've just been struggling out to figure out who's next, and actually it would be Norman, because there was a clattering as we published in 2021. And by the way, to all of you, I'm not asking that you, obviously, if you listen to Ralph, I'm not asking that you read from your Lavender Ink books. You can read current work, you can read whatever you want. But Norman Fisher, as 90% of you know, is a famous Bay Area poet and Zen master.
I want to read from There Was a Clattering As, and then I hope to have time to read a couple of new short poems. So I'll start with Clattering. I'm going to time myself and see what I'm doing. Don't applaud, because that takes time. I get 5 more seconds. Virtual reverence falls virtually from the sky, fleecy mana, the panting animal alive on the table, bleats into the text, protesting all the reasons it's hard to be dead, harder still to be alive, to this feeling of what I've seen and experienced. Night and day are as different as night and day. Good and evil don't exist. There's just what happens as it happens and is forgotten and never is. Words are mere words and remain so till the waters rush back. Those terrible walls of water, solid as acacia wood, unhewn stone, about to crash in mitered chunks around our ankles, regardless of one's precious accomplishments. There's no excuse for one's having taken up so much valuable space and air that ought to have remained empty and pure. I bobs and dips like a coastline buoy whose little bell chimes, see me, into terrible white sky. Dismayed are all my charms, abandoned to a passing thought that too soon left me behind, into which a single hypothetical gull dips dramatic toward shore. If you have any sound or use of voice, speak to me. If there's anything to be done to bring you ease or for me, speak to me. If you have any information about the fate of our troubled country, that foreknowledge could abate, oh, speak. If you've extorted treasures of the exhausted earth with your mania for significance, and wish now to be forgiven by a living soul capable of comprehending your words, speak of it now. Speak. Beautiful dreamer, rattle in your chains. Awaken now into a fuller slumber. Your joys and your blessings ascend on high in scope to be measured and squared in men's eyes. What you've endured is painful, yet constant and pure. Your music plays in hearts and veins that mighty beat and shine like moonlit mountains or star-washed seas, here beyond all strife and human fumbling. I play my grief upon this lute, and there's freedom in chains. If I were a rich man, if I were divine, I'd love and delight everywhere and in all things share. And I did not know to stay or flee. My brother had decided to flee and encouraged me in that thought. If the only course for the circumspect, and encouraged me in that, thought it the only course for the circumspect. But I feared for my goods. And how does anyone decide, head in the jaws of fate, a course, whether to live or die? What's best for a life as it moves along time's river lanes, as if tuned that life and could decide. So I meditated upon it long days, looking for some providential sign I knew would come and kept close watch on my thoughts and dreams and impulses as these rhymed with events about me that daily changed in a frantic round in which many people, moved by panic, indulged in extensive acts of kindness and distress, and many died. We counted daily the roster of the various parishes whose numbers daily mounted, those terrible, silent numbers bespeaking individual horrors, and homes afire with pestilence, and people sore afeared to share news of their illness, for fear neighbors would shun them and their homes be boarded up. I myself fell ill. It lasted about 3 days. And I was sure it was not the plague, for my strength returned. And the signs we all had come to know were not present. But my servant, who was to accompany me on the road, ran off, and in all London no horse could be procured, as daily the procession of fleeing folk passed my window, and I knew I must remain. Why a fish? Not because to eat and kill a fish seemed less objectionable than the slaughter of other animals more like us. Not because he said, and I will make you fishers of men, and they were in fact fishermen in that place of large waters near deserts. Rather, it was because the letters that spell the word fish spelled out his name and his destiny in terrible acrostic, whose numbers folded in all letters and human and non-human occurrences in a temporary world and foretold his tragic doom. After which he is said to have said these, his earliest recorded words: "May the unnameable bless thee and keep thee. May the unnameable create in all appearances a face to shine upon you and be gracious to you and lift you up and give you peace." So that's all from, there was a clattering, a minute to read a couple of new things, which I will do. I have time for both of them. These are, I'm writing now, mostly short, standalone poems, which I'm quite enjoying. A personal poem. It's not this poem one wants, another mind, in another time, another world enough to wonder, in another time, another world enough to wonder. I'm pushing a stone around in circles, or a circle, or it's not moving. I'm not pushing, am pushing. The circle makes a circle in a quiet body of water on another day. I can now think of and care for all the people I saw, I loved, somehow, I am sure, and why or how would I not, if to see is already a form of affection, or a distinct name for affection, in a world of names. They are not interchangeable. One's not another, nor myself, nor anyone else, only came and made me less than we, us. A personal, plural, singular poem that's here if I am, and they are, and we talk it through together. And this last one, things that change. Things that change go unnoticed. Why isn't it some other way? Because this is how we are made. Time has made us this way, and all that's happened in time, if anything at all has happened. Insect eyes are light detecting columns consisting of many small units, each one an eye. Krill have a compound eye that detects movement, cannot read the New York Times. A tiny sea creature is transparent with transparent eyes that make up 25% of its body weight. If that were true for humans, they would not be able to lift their heads on their necks, would have to drag them behind or push them ahead with great effort. The hawk moth can distinguish color by starlight with a crystalline lens, its corona focusing light like a camera. The senses are theories. If I look away, I theorize the tomato remains as it was when I looked at it. I theorize the world is real out there. Metaphysical realism. But if species see things differently, with their different eyes in their head or elsewhere, which species sees the correct world? Experiences are symbolic constructions. Perception mirrors reality, and we see what's there? This cannot be so. No species sees what's there. All senses work to help us be here, though we don't know where or what this here is. Objects have characteristics, but we don't know what they are. Selection pressure favors love in a complex world in which the will to live is strong. Capitalism is not sustainable if it favors the few over the many, and none of our perceptions could possibly be true. Reality is utterly unlike our perception of objects, separate from one another in an external world. A true tomato, if there is a true tomato, is not the tomato of my mind, which is delicious, and I like it. Space-time is like a letter I write that is ink and paper, and not the thought I have as I write. No there. It's all a bright idea. Space-time is a mode in which we think, not a condition in which we live, says Einstein, who nevertheless believed in location. But location seems also to be suspect. There are no limitations at all. What is consciousness? Where is consciousness? Everything, everywhere. Which means nothing, nowhere. Conscious realism. Everywhere, everything, all at once. I am a convenience for getting along. And death is forgetting the space-time thought.
Thanks, Norman, for timing that.
Yes, but I went over.
You went 15 minutes.
No, 13 minutes. Sorry. But you know, the screen goes black, that's the trouble. And the screen goes black, and then you don't want to stop. You're like, that's what happens.
Okay. My screen gets black too. So next, another Bay Area poet, Kit Robinson, did his Quarantina back, as you might suppose, right in the wake of the virus.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for publishing this book. It's written from 2019 through the end of 21. The poems are dated, and it's all about COVID and the pandemic and quarantining and stuff. But we know all that, and we want to move on. And even as I was writing this, the poems are all dated here. I was already moving on, or trying to move on. So I'm not going to read poems that are strictly about the pandemic, because I'm just so happy to be here with all of you. This first one is pre-pandemic. It's called Parallel Lives, and it's in memory of Kevin Killian. Poetry is a waiting game. You wait for the line to fill the stanza with life, a moment stolen from the distribution center of language. We just work here. The sound of a barking dog. Light the fuse, and a series of small explosions takes place, like tin cans strung together that dangle from the rear bumper of a car marked up with soap just married. As line marries line on into an unknowable future. Fill it with life. Look out the window. Walk to the corner. Pick up the phone. Decisions. Break for lunch. dig the streets, hum a tune, be there for somebody special. All along that engine sound, PG&E is repairing the lines where they connect under the streets. We live in the city, the definite article celebrated in these lines, whose center is everywhere, whose edge is nowhere. After foraging for mushrooms in the outlying forest, the bearded Russian sits on the bus, a backpack full of them, on his lap. Leningrad, 1990, a memory carried forward past the lives of comrades no longer with us. The poem arrives sooner or later, if at all the splendor, all the ardor spills out onto the table, the periodic table, the elements of our lives add up to, minus a sudden breath. That was June 18th, 2019. This poem is incredible. You should immediately memorize it and tell it to all your friends. If you read this poem over and over, you will be better able to read and understand other poems. Any poem. Life goes on and off. Death goes off and on. Shit happens. Just like in this poem, which is like an elixir or vaccine. Sometimes this poem is like overhearing a conversation in the next yard, a moment of relaxation in your otherwise busy day. Other times it's more like thinking about something, then thinking about something else. It never stops, even when interrupted by a passing train. In that sense, this poem is immortal, insofar as it's always on the move, to no particular end. When you dream a poem, the poem is often odd, weird, asyntactic, or wild. This poem is totally normal. It teaches one how to live normally, under the most abnormal of conditions. Put one foot in front of the other, is how the ancestors put it. They even put it into this poem, so that anyone would be able to see what this poem of our life on earth is made of. And that was in June of 2020. This is one of a popular poem. It was recently published in the poem of the week, I think. Terry Lynch picked it. I have a lot of praise for it. I'm very proud of it, really. This one's called Premier Etude. The mind moves as water moves, in waves, wind at their back. The mind moves as fire moves, in lines, under heavy smoke. The mind moves as earth moves, spinning through darkness and light. The mind moves as the body moves, on two legs, one step at a time. The mind moves as the planets move, elliptically, around the sun. What is a tree? What is a tree? A tree is a premature book. In its leaves, I read the history of the future, more specific than you would ever have thought. What is a chair? A chair is an empty person, relaxing in part sun, part shade, to wind chimes, touching in the breeze. What is a fence? A dead leaf in a knothole would have you believe in the inexhaustibility of phenomena. What is a line? It connects 2 points and droops a little in the middle to describe a shallow curve with no towels hanging from it in the gray sun. What is a cone? A dirty orange traffic warning next to a concrete block with a white plastic cap with a base for an umbrella. What are flowers? Black-eyed Susan climbing over the fence, snow in summer, deep red geraniums at home among rocks, kids on break from Zoom. So it was October 2020. And this one is called In a Station for Richard Manuel. As you may remember, a great singer-songwriter who was part of a band called The Band back in the day. And one of his great songs was In a Station. A certain amount of time goes by while you are doing nothing, waiting for a train, as it were. There is a relaxed anticipation about simply waiting for the poem to begin. You are not alone. Your various readers are there with you, wondering what will happen when the poem gets underway, as do you. You feel a slight twinge of responsibility. Maybe they will give up and turn elsewhere. There are infinitely many elsewheres. But you are okay with that. The main thing is to be patient, cognizant of the fact that anything can happen in a poem, and probably will. The sounds of the city awaken our curiosity. Construction, transportation, and mining. Mining? Aye, mining the depths of the sea. The dream of our past lies on the seafloor, where everything is mixed up and spattered across our only recently awakened consciousness, already dispersed by a thick cloud of forgetfulness, if that's what you call it. Still, there is sun on a fence, relaxed branches hanging from an olive tree, a light breeze moving things around. Whole days might go by like this, and no one the wiser. Does the train arrive at the station, or vice versa? Who can clock their relative speeds? We know that all is in Even the stock-still nutcracker in his colorful regalia circumnavigates the globe daily while hurtling through space. We're all just along for the ride. Meanwhile, have a plan, as a nice young boss of mine used to say, and execute against that plan as best you can. You may be clumsy or even MIA from time to time, but don't worry, just keep right on. As a great poet once wrote, running around enough, it may be perfect. Now we are waiting for the poem to end. The people are many who are winterized under the sheltering sky. The sounds of the city are many thoughts in circulation, beyond number. This seems as good a place as any. December 2020. And this is the last poem. I'll read in the last poem in the book. It's called Sending Love. Sending love in all the worn places, fading at sunset where you used to sit, a hub to so many, constellated even without you, inconsolable as the night they closed the border, sending thousands back into the cold. Continue we must, though the lines be shaky that crisscross our planetary concern. When in a rush, your presence returns us to an altered state we recognize as home, the one we left without meaning to. How now in a flash the day brightens, a time capsule only of air. Neither an ocean nor a forest be, but grains of light spill upward into the night sky. The moon is half full of meaning as we remember. Location neither here nor there in the woolly crotch of a birth to be, where everything starts again, but differently, this time more alone than not. I see by the light of planets a universal joint that bonds the human project to those of a rocky coast laden with anemones, where hands and leaves coalesce, roots intertwine, communication continues across interplanetary gaps. Here, love comes across as both necessary and sufficient to life on earth as we know it. Thank you.
a Sri Lankan American poet and diplomat, though I believe he retired from diplomacy. Is that correct?
Will be in a few months.
Oh, will be in a few months. And he writes it in at least Spanish and English. Do you also write in French?
French, Portuguese, and Haitian Creole as well.
Okay. But not in Sri Lankan?
Not in any language, not in Tamil or Sinhalese, which is a bit of odd.
So, I have no idea what he's going to read today, but we'll find out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm actually a diplomat for the United States, which is my adoptive country. I was born in Ceylon then, now it's called Sri Lanka. And I'll take you back to Sri Lanka for a bit, and other countries, you know, the tsunami, the Splintered Face, Tsunami Poems, one of my books out. And just because I'd like to sort of go on a little tour, you know, 10 minutes around the world. Birds. Birds that eat salt, hang about cemeteries, forage in abandoned lots, Civil War crows, fattened on carnage from roadside bombs, gorged vultures loping from body to body, picking eyes clean before clambering up into trees that have survived, hanging still over the silent beach. A boy, hospital bed, bungalow. A boy recovers from his wounds, cared for now by doctors and his uncle. From time to time, he dials his parents' cell number, says he'll heal, then return to Yale. Ask the elephants and birds to find Appa and Amma. Ask the elephants and birds to find Appa and Amma. The whole book is a series of poems written about the tsunami, different as it affected that island. Now, I mentioned the Civil War, which of course is part of the history of Sri Lanka. I call it the Uncivil War in this book, and I'll just read one poem from here, Ready to Move. We are Mayans, we're Tamils, we're Armenians, we are Germans who lived once in Poland. We're Burkinabes stuck in Abidjan, Somalians in Maine and Massachusetts. We are witnesses to the only truth worth repeating. Have a bag of essentials, holy book, toothbrush, a fresh set of clothes, ready to put on your back when historical conditions change suddenly. Ready to move. And you know, of course, the poetry of migration is a term that was applied to. I was lucky enough to get that phrase from A.K. Ramanujan, my first book. He called it the welcome edition of the poetry of migration. Anyway, that phrase has stuck with me. And I wrote a book called The Migrant States. And there's a dialogue with Walt Whitman throughout this book. And it's sort of my attempt to announce my American bona fides. Walt Whitman is important. And I wrote this poem on his 200th birthday. Walt 200. Break the locks, unleash the mind. Walt Whitman has left Paumanok. He is abroad. He is sitting among us in our soul. He flies the post with pigeons and the giant freight planes. He hops freight trains and rides into Mexico. He's on a P&O cruise visiting St. Kitts and Barbados. He has joined the merchant marine. He sails into Guantanamo. He throws fish into the sea in search of whales. He has the biggest, longest beard in the world. He jives, thrives, cavorts, shimmers. He is 200 years old today, and he does not give a flying rat. He is in your mind, Mr. President, even if you cannot smother or scratch or squeeze him out. He is gloriously spirit, gadfly, rabbit and sloth. He nurses our democratic wounds. He knows how to write history from the pebble's view, the side glance of the wren, the snake hanging in the tree. He is black and white and all shades of grey. He is our friend and guide, and he will elect us in every time we fall down. Let us go back to Paumanok with what we've learned these 200 years. Let us go back to set forth again Walt Whitman in our backpack. Thank you. And then my latest book directly was called 10,000 Steps Against the Tyrant. That was the orange-haired tyrant, and it was written during the campaign in 2020, but it was also written during the pandemic. So there are poems about the mother of all elections, the mother of all pandemics, and then my own mother is everywhere in the book as well. And this poem is a poem really about the mother and my relationship with her. Late night olive oil. Let us put the letters and fears and boiling emotions on the page. Mommy, why did you go to the kitchen stealthily, without a word to your sleeping son, without your walker, to find the large bottle of olive oil, to pour it on the table and floor, to fill a small vessel which you meant to carry back to your room, as if nobody would notice until you called my name, because you could not negotiate the rest of the way from dining table to bedroom, vessel in hand, without cane or walker. I write to atone for my flailing words, saying, never, never, never again. The kitchen is prohibited. Your mania for oil in the hair is prohibited. The stealthy, mischievous, childish, truant foray into the darkness with a torch in hand, which you forgot on the countertop, all of this is prohibited. Your losing memory and control are prohibited. These words are prohibited. Decline and death are prohibited. Heard that poem and she has given it a tacit approval. I'll finish with one more poem. I'll read from the translation that I just published with Bill Origami. Manuel Ulacia is a really great poet who died in an accident. He drowned at sea in 2001, just when these poems were about to be published in English. And the book never came out then. And then almost 20 years later, the book is now out in this beautiful edition and revised. I've revised the translations and included a couple of new ones. And Alfred Korn kindly wrote a preface to the book. He was also a friend whom I didn't know at the time of Manuel's. Anyway, one of Manuel's poems is called Otra vez Jack. If there's time, I'll read the Spanish and then the English and finish it. Okay. Otra vez Jack. En el bar de un hotel, después de muchos años de no saber nada de aquel amigo, salió su nombre en la conversación y al preguntar por él, la expresión en los ojos del desconocido con quien hablabas te hizo saber que había muerto. Entonces te quedaste abstraído, silente, triste, no sé cuánto tiempo, recordando, mientras la gente siguió charlando, su cuerpo desnudo, rayado como el de un tigre por el sol de la tarde que se filtraba entre las persianas, sus sedientos ojos azul intenso que bebían agua en el manantial de los tuyos, sus músculos suaves, esculpidos, que al tacto deseante y deseado de tus manos eran fuego, sudor, sinestesia de los sentidos, olvidándote, olvidado, a qué otro tiempo, en aquel dormitorio, donde cada tarde de tanta pasión que crea el deseo, se empañaban los vidrios. Again, Jack. In a hotel bar, after many years of knowing nothing of that friend, his name came up in conversation. And when you asked about him, the expression in the eyes of the stranger with whom you were talking made you realize that he had died. Then you were left with your thoughts, silent, sad, I don't know, For how long, remembering, while people continue to chat, his naked body striped like a tiger's by the afternoon sun, filtered through the blinds, his thirsty, intense blue eyes that drank water from the spring of your eyes, his smooth, sculptured muscles, which upon the desiring and desired touch of your hands became fire, sweat, the synesthesia of the senses, as you forgot yourself and were forgotten in what other time, in that bedroom, where every afternoon desire created so much passion that it steamed the windows. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Indran. I do want to mention that, it's not so rare that someone speaks so many languages, but to be able to translate from one to another in poetry, really impressive. And Indran actually does it in both directions, especially in Spanish. And we have at the Lacia book, origami that he just closed with that's downstairs. You got to pick it up. It's really interesting. It's a great book and a relatively unknown Mexican poet. So last but not least, Sarah Ray, my future author and former student, and for 15 years I ran the law residency MFA program at the University of New Orleans, and she was a student there and has been around ever since. Anyway, she's got a chapbook for sale downstairs that's not mine, right? But it's down there, and Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm gonna try and time myself here. All right, there we go. Yes, I'm really happy to be here. It's great to see you all. Thank you for coming. I'm going to begin, speaking of translation, I've really admired listening to all of you today. And I also do some translation. I've worked with a Mexican poet, Guadalupe Angela, who was, unfortunately she passed away a couple of years ago, from the state of Oaxaca. And I had the great pleasure of meeting up with her and conferring with her about some translations. So I will begin with a poem that she wrote, and I'll read it in the original Spanish. I'm not a native Spanish speaker, so forgive my pronunciation. And then I will read my translation in English. This is Untitled. No seré la patinadora que anhela los árboles blancos, la soledad de los parques. No me enseñará el traje de uso que delinea la diestra figura. No tendré el balance que exige la cuchilla al escribir geometrías en el hielo. No seré más veloz al compartir la ruta de las corrientes de aire. No seré ave que inicia el vuelo a ras de los grandes lagos del norte. I will not be the ice skater who yearns for the white trees, the solitude of the parks. The wetsuit that outlines that skillful figure will not cling to me. I will not have the balance the blade requires to etch geometric figures in the ice. I will not move more swiftly if I let the flow of air currents take me away. I will not be the bird that begins her flight at the same level as the Great Lakes of the North. Guadalupe Angela. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's lovely. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from my chapbook someplace else, which is for sale downstairs. And I do write a lot about place and identity. And I wrote these poems when I was studying with UNO. So thank you, Bill, and thanks for the program again. This one I wrote after I visited the Alhambra Palace in Granada, Spain. And Of course, it was reconquered by the Reconquest in Spain in that fateful year 1492, after having been ruled for centuries by the Arabic peoples of North Africa. So I'm at the Alhambra Palace, waiting in line, and also, as many of you probably know, there are a lot of immigrants that try to cross the Mediterranean Sea at the Strait of Gibraltar from North Africa to Europe. Some of them make it in boats, many of them perish, many of them die. At the Alhambra. At the Alhambra, 1,000 strong, we speak French, German, English, Italian, Spanish, wait hours for tickets to see the ancient Arabic palace in Spain, once ruled by North African royalty. At the Alhambra, the guidebook says, the Medina, the heart of the old city, has been destroyed, only the palace remains. I have just come from a town in Morocco with its Medina intact. There are no Moroccans here now. At the Alhambra, we wait and are still waiting. 8 a.m., and some of us have been waiting here since 4, several thousand of us, to see the ruins of the last Arabic kingdom to fall to the Christian invaders. At the Alhambra, I commiserate in broken French with the man behind me. Il y a trop de monde, too many, only 300 tickets left for the morning, more than twice that number of people waiting ahead. At the Alhambra, we are English, French, Italian, German, American, Australian, sometimes Spanish, not many of us, Egyptian, Nigerian, Algerian, Moroccan, Tunisian, Libyan, Kenyan. Hopefully we will get in. Ojalá que podamos entrar, the Spanish ojalá, from the Arabic inshallah, if God wills it. I take another glance at my newspaper. On the left of the 3rd page, a secondary headline. Fishermen find the bodies of 10 West African immigrants and their capsized boat as they try to reach Algeciras. Now just 200 tickets left for the morning, says the loudspeaker. While some manage the perilous crossing of the Strait of Gibraltar, separating Spain from North Africa, many others perish trying. We look at each other nervously. This year especially, there has been an increase in the numbers of children and teenagers among them. At the Alhambra, inshallah, maybe we can make it to the coveted entrance before our time runs out. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so another poem that speaks to immigration as well from my chapbook, La Vida Nueva. He comes to see her in the evening, apologizes for the dust in his clothes and in his hair, demasiado polvo. He's been mixing plaster today. Yesterday, painted radiators. She asks if he likes mixing plaster. He says no. She asks if he likes painting. He says no. He says he liked the banking job he had in Guatemala before he came. Thank you, thanks. All right, now a couple of newer ones, possibly for the manuscript that I will submit, the future manuscript. This is a shift in tone here, and content warning. It talks about killing chickens on a farm. So just to be forewarned. In the shoebox of old photos. I didn't think it would be that way that time I saw Mom kill chickens at Grandma's old hen house, the one Uncle Joe inherited when he moved in and started running the farm. I thought she'd chop off heads in one fell swoop, putting the hens quickly out of their misery. Instead, she hung them up by the feet on a low branch and sawed at their necks with a knife that didn't seem very sharp. It took a while. Blood gushed out. Wings flapped wildly. When they were still, she dropped the bodies in pots of hot water so we could easily pluck or dress them. Everything smelled like old, sweaty sneakers. Someone gutted the birds. I don't remember exactly how that was done. I do recall Grandma telling us to save any soft, unlaid eggs found inside. Those will make good French dressing. In the yellowed snapshot, Mom has a smug smile on her face, as if she's holding a secret she's waiting for us all to discover. Me, my brother, a cousin or two, and Grandma. We grasp for feathers as sun baits us golden. Thanks so much. I have two more. Is that possible? Two more is okay? Maybe.
The phone went black.
Your phone went blank. I know. I'm supposed to be talking to myself. That's okay? All right. I forgot. Here it is. I'm talking to myself. Okay. Two more. All right. Another travel poem about Morocco. The olives in Essaouira. We couldn't stop eating them, black, wrinkled, cured, deep and complex, complementing French bread, sweet butter, honey, cafe au lait for breakfast in the mornings. Later, we'd walk the Medina, its winding streets, venture to the waterfront to feast on fresh shrimp and flounder. The cats there did not have plush coats. Matted fur and loose skin hung from their bones as they howled for scraps from fishermen. I bought presents for friends and family, purple and red silk scarves interwoven with gold strands. The shop wrapped them up with their business cards on top, ones you later snipped off without asking. You said it was offensive how they wanted to advertise. We stopped at a barber's. You got a shave, the old-fashioned kind with a straight razor. One misstep, and there would be blood. We came so close. I'm searching for those olives now, this cold and snowy Chicago winter. I want to tear back memory, savor velvet flesh. I want sunlight to warm me as it filters strong through ice-crusted windows. I want to watch the mound of ebony pits grow on my kitchen table as I scrape the bits, the last bits of salty earth from the stones with my teeth.
Wow.
Thank you, thanks. Okay, and here's, I was wondering whether I should read this, but with all the wonderful water imagery in the previous poetry that we've heard today, and the movement of the waves and so forth, I thought, okay, I gotta go for this one. Called Waves Are Mountains Pushing Us Through Time, and it's inspired by the poem by Michael McClure, Mexico Scene from the Moving Car. Water lifts me to my neck, azure water, Caribbean waves rolling, a rainbow in the distance, puffy cumulus clouds around the rain, somewhere on the horizon, loved ones coming to greet me. At 62, everything is all right. Matt is here, his smile, his wide laugh, his blue eyes intent, and his grandmother, my mother Dorothy, her bright sunburn, Florence, my aunt, and Thomas too, on Long Island Sound. I am 8, I'm riding the waves at age 8 on Long Island Sound. The water, not turquoise, not warm, but yes, buoyant, the sand in my suit, my skin colored pink like the color in the rainbow, patterns of salt drying on my skin. And now a man rides waves next to me. He could be my Chicago lover. I am thinking about Aunt Esther and how she followed her lover west, changed her name, left her Indiana life. And Grandma and Grandpa, they never saw the sea, but they are here. The others, my friends, writers, teachers, Gail, Guadalupe, Annie. Their exquisite words, not silenced now, they flow through me, they lift me, their books, my soul, our souls, the water. It plumes up, pushes me toward shore, bubbles in my hair and mouth. I am liquid, I am lifted, I am swirling spray and foam. We are eddies, we are swells, we are currents moving in and reaching out. Each person, each memory, each time, they lift us, they carry us, they hold us, their salt drying on our skin. Thank you.